Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Tuesday, July 25th. Over the next few days, we will see some changes to the weather. Today, we still have a fairly large area of thunderstorms expected over the eastern half of the Great Basin, along with some gusty winds and dry conditions for parts of central Idaho. And these gusty winds will extend further south and west, especially as we move into Wednesday and Thursday, where we will see these winds gusting between 25 and 35 miles per hour and relative humidity below about 15%. RH might be a little bit higher in Idaho today, but will be dropping here over the coming days. Also, as we have a wave pushing through the north, this will push some of our moisture further east into mainly Utah on Wednesday, possibly still into northern Ely, could see some isolated thunderstorms, and then by Thursday confined to the far eastern side of the Great Basin, with drier air pushing east across the region. Grasses are cured at the lower elevations, and live fuel moisture continues to fall rapidly with the warm and dry conditions, especially over northern and western areas. Over the last 24 hours, we did see significant lightning over the eastern half of the Great Basin and some isolated storms back further west into Nevada and also up into southwest Idaho. You can see the precipitation here on the right. It was a mix of wet and dry, mostly on the drier side up north and on the western fringes, and we did certainly have some moisture reaching the ground with wetting rains in parts of Utah. Our Great Basin fire activity, yesterday we had 17 new fires reported for just over 370 acres. Do have a new large fire up north on the Payette. Over the last 7 to 14 days, we continue to see thunderstorms impact central and eastern areas of the Great Basin with still very dry conditions over parts of northwest Nevada into the Sierra and then up into Idaho. Do have also kind of some drier spots around the Four Corners region where most of the thunderstorms are really starting to develop or have been developing further north and west. Currently, our ERCs continue to climb in northern and western areas that are on the drier side of any of this lightning and are approaching maximums for the time of year up in Idaho, hence certainly our increase in fire activity up north. Further south, where we are seeing the moisture, ERCs are bouncing around up and down depending on the days that they have moisture, but are a little bit closer to normal and below the 90th percentile in these areas that keep getting repeated thunderstorms. The satellite loop from this morning shows the strong ridge of high pressure dominating over around New Mexico. So we do have moisture wrapping around that high, impacting the eastern half of the Great Basin. Also, you can see the trough moving into Canada and the northwest. So this will again keep our winds gusty over northern and western areas. Looking at the weather pattern for later today, you can see under that ridge we'll continue to have that moisture trapped for more scattered thunderstorms today, mainly across Utah and the Arizona Strip, but also could see some in eastern Nevada. Otherwise, out ahead of this area of low pressure to the northwest and between the high, we are getting these gusty winds and drier conditions from Idaho down into northwest and western Nevada. So we do have a high risk today for the Salmon Chalice. Winds will be gusty up there along with current ongoing fire activity and also decreasing humidity. These winds will be gusty further south along the Sierra front. Again, fuels haven't quite been as critical. Also, we don't have the fire activity that we do up north. And there are some red flag warnings up today for Idaho. Otherwise, that moisture has certainly had an impact recently across Utah, so still in the low category with respect to fire potential today. Looking at the relative humidity and the winds, you can see the driest conditions are in western and northern Nevada with single-digit humidity, and we will see those gusty winds generally between about 30 and 35 miles per hour. Up north in Idaho, RHs will be in the 16 to 25% range, also with these breezy winds a little bit closer to about 25 or 30 miles per hour. But again, with our ongoing fire activity, the winds certainly will be a concern and an impact, something to watch out for. Looking at Wednesday, similar conditions, although some of this moisture will be pushed slightly eastward, so mostly into the far eastern side of the Great Basin in Utah, with still drier and breezy conditions, so another day of high risk for central Idaho. And then relative humidity, not really much change from what we'll see today, and wind gusts, again, very similar, maybe not quite as breezy along the Sierra front, and maybe a little gustier for eastern Idaho into Wyoming. On Thursday, this ridge gets pushed a little bit further south as that trough continues to impact the northwest. So again, that moisture will be pushed to far eastern Utah with still drier and breezy conditions for Thursday. So we don't have any high risk at this time. We'll continue to watch Idaho if those winds pick up. And then looking again at Thursday, seeing very similar RHs, drier as you push further east into Nevada and western Utah as that moisture gets pushed off to the east, and then similar breezy conditions in the 30 to 35 mile per hour range with those drier conditions for parts of western Nevada and then up into Idaho. Forecast amounts of precipitation, again, most of that with the thunderstorms over the eastern half of the Great Basin, especially in the higher terrain. And then as we move into Friday, more of the same, probably only very isolated lightning activity on our far eastern borders and southern borders, otherwise dry and more moderate breezes. And you can see the change in our significant fire potential map with that dry air pushing eastward. We are seeing many areas more in the brown for the eastern half of the Great Basin and less in the yellows and greens. So for Saturday, more of the same, but we are starting to see some moisture move its way into far southern areas. So this could be day one of our increase in showers and thunderstorms with the monsoon moisture coming up from the south for Utah and the Arizona Strip. And certainly will be increasing by Sunday into early next week. So we'll have this moisture in place over eastern areas of the Great Basin, and you can see the decrease in fire potential going into Sunday. Then by Monday, that continues to spread north, and we'll likely see that monsoon moisture affecting the eastern half of the Great Basin probably through the middle of next week before things dry out again. So again, an increase in the precipitation for the 7-day, accounting for that next push of the monsoon going into the weekend and early next week. The 8 to 14-day outlook, taking us from August 1st through the 7th, shows above normal temperatures still, but also above normal precipitation that's really pushed north into the northern side of the Great Basin. So we'll see if this actually occurs. Certainly that would be welcome moisture for northern areas that are seeing the increase in fire activity, but we'll continue to watch this. We are at least looking for some wetter conditions with the monsoon over eastern areas, and we'll see how far north that pushes. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.